we have an engine problem.
Interesting stories about through a lack of vision, I would say.
I'm going to ask you about that test bed also.
We weren't serious enough about it.
We have so many fighter jet programs.
I guess the question is, why did we get here?
Where's the Kaveri at now?
They won't know whether to laugh or cry.
Kaveri is history.
Kaveri is not history.
Marut never crossed the Mark number, the Mark 1.
Maybe it did in a dive.
Why take it to Russia?
We don't have a flying test bed.
Cut to present day.
Then today India can develop any kind of missile.
Before the Iran-Israel war,
You need a system on systems approach.
including Elon Musk, this is the era of drones.
You need to get up to speed on the fighter side as well.
Where are we at the jet fighter development program now?
And you can't have a 5th generation stealth aircraft without having a 5th generation engine.
It's a very interesting point, Saurav.
Pakistanis can be kept at bay.
It's become a matter of state survival.
Conventional counterforce against nuclear weapons has become a reality now.
Wait, is that a deal breaker for us?
Time is always a deal breaker.
Hello and welcome to the Sandeep Unnithan Show, your weekly dose, defense, geopolitics, and much, much more. I'm joined today by my friend Saurav Jha. He's the founder, director of the Delhi Defense Review. Saurav, welcome to my show.
Thank you for having me, Sandeep. It's a great pleasure.
Saurav, we have an engine problem.
Yes, we do.
How bad is it?
The less said about it, the better, perhaps. But
Yeah, we have so many fighter jet programs. We have so many ambitious fighter jet programs, the LCA, the AMCA, and BF, but no fighter jet engine of our own. How do we get here?
Well, through a lack of vision, I would say, if one way to summarize it. It's quite literally our Achilles heel.
Yeah.
And I guess the question is, why did we get here? Right. So the answer to that would be that, we weren't serious enough about it.
Right.
So we didn't put in enough resources, obviously.
Right.
I mean, the total allocation for the Kaveri program was 2839 crores. Right. And that was after the PDC in 2009.
That's
a new
2,000
PDC.
crore. That's
Yeah. I mean, and around just over 2,000 crores has been spent till date.
Right.
734 crores of that was meant for integration, testing and all that.
Right.
And that never happened because we are yet to fly it on on an actual test aircraft.
I'm going to ask you about the test bed also.
And when it was first sanctioned, it was sanctioned for a grand sum of only around 384 crores.
Right.
Back in the late 80s, right? With an incredible, and it was sanctioned as a mission mode project,
Right.
which means that it was it was user defined.
Right.
I mean, the requirements were defined by the Air Force and it had to be delivered as an actual usable product.
Right.
And the PDC was only 1996.
Right.
So the whole thing was, so you can imagine, if you sort of threw these numbers at anybody else,
Yeah.
they wouldn't know whether to laugh or cry and said
Right.
that we want a 4th generation low bypass turbofan with these kinds of figures.
Right.
Right.
So where's the Kaveri at now, 2025?
Okay. So if you look at the baseline Kaveri,
Yeah.
the one that was designed to deliver 81 kilonewtons of what is called wet thrust or afterburner thrust,
Right.
max thrust, that the project has been closed, as the secretary of DDR&D, the chairman DRDO sort of mentioned the other day. But the program itself has yielded a certain number of prototypes.
Right.
Okay. Prototypes, one of which was, of course, tested on the flying test bed in Russia at the Gromov Flight Research Institute in late 2010 and early 2011.
Why take it to Russia? Why don't we have test
No, we
facilities?
don't have a flying test bed. We
Why
don't, because we never invested in it. That also costs money and requires vision. You see, if you want to develop anything, not just propulsion, and propulsion most certainly, a clear marker of success, of seriousness, and of dedication and persistence is investment into test facilities. If you look at India's missile program, I would posit that one of the key reasons why it succeeded was the build-up of test facilities.
Right.
Relevant to the objectives at hand, right?
ITR, Chandipur, all of those.
There are very interesting stories about how
Right.
the integrated test range at what Chandipur came about. It used to be called the interim test range at one time because something else was supposed to be the test range nearby. But that, of course, I don't want to digress. But the thing is that even before the integrated guided missile development program was sanctioned in 1983, a lot of work had gone into building up test facilities.
Right.
And actually, IGMDP was about consolidating all that test work, all those test facilities and the design work that had progressed concurrently into a sort of program, right? Into a program that would deliver products.
Right.
So IGMDP had five missiles were sanctioned under it. 4 were supposed to be products, and one was the TD, which was the Agni technology demonstrator project.
Right.
But of course, now we know, although IGMDP was closed in 2008, it has spawned a whole family of not just one family, several families of missiles. And today, India can develop any kind of missile. I mean, DRDO can within a span of 24 to 28 months.
So you're saying that we didn't have the same focus, the seriousness we had for the IGMDP, we couldn't translate it for engine development.
Yes, absolutely. That's what I'm saying. So the kind of stuff that happened at DRDL Hyderabad, which is basically our key missile laboratory, and of course it has spawned, there's now a whole APJ Abdul Kalam missile complex there with RCI and all. That thing never really happened to the same extent at GTRE. Gas Turbine Research Establishment, which is our leading laboratory for gas turbine developments, aviation gas turbine, and of course marine gas turbine developments as well. And is of course DRDO signature lab for gas turbine work. It never happened because the same kind of resources were never given to it. And even you see, I'll give you an example. If you want to be serious about developing a 5th generation low bypass turbofan that will power a 5th generation fighter, or I'm not even getting into a 6th generation kind of variable cycle engine. We'll talk about that maybe in a bit. But you need certain types of test facilities on hand at your disposal. You need a high altitude engine test facility. You need an open area test bed. You need much higher class turbine test facilities. Things which can cater to a mass flow of 130 kg per second, etc.
And right now we have none of these.
We have none of these.
And we have to fly to Russia every time we have to test.
And we don't have a flying test bed either. So we fly to Russia for 2 things. We fly to Russia for SIAM. For the high altitude engine test facility at Baranov. And we fly to them for the flying test bed at Gromov Flight Research Institute.
The IL-76 is converted.
We fly to Anicom in Germany for compressor tests because they have a massive complex there for component tests going up to all kinds of mass flows, right? They have component test facilities of varying levels of mass flow and a lot of other features. I mean, it's just not the mass flow which matters.
So the problem then sort of is that lack of focus. And the fact is that we said that, this engine is supposed to be developed by GTRE. Unko banane do.
You just threw a project at them. They put up a case. I mean, the services put up a case because it's a mission mode project, right? I mean, the services define the requirements. They put up the case. You included that in your budget. And then you said we are now going to design a sort of an engine, and develop it in a span of less than a decade, right? 89, 96.
Other countries have taken what? 2 decades?
For the kind of engine that we wanted to develop at that time, other countries would have taken 15 to 20 years and have taken 15 to 20 years. And would have spent on an average $2 billion at the time. Over the course of the project. Which in today's money is a lot more. It's 16,000 crores. But say at that time, it was much less than that. I mean, you can do an inflation-adjusted kind of comparison as well. But anyway, the point is that we didn't throw anywhere near the kind of money we needed to at the time. We did not build up the test facilities at all. We had to run, as expected, various design challenges cropped up. Right. There was fan flutter, there was compressor flutter, there was what is called combustion there was afterburner screech, combustion instability in the afterburner section, right? The augmenter. There were problems with the combustor, there were light up issues with the afterburner, there were high cycle fatigue issues, and there's a whole roster of issues that had to be solved. None of this is strange. This is what you would expect.
In a development of any engine.
And especially of a country which really had no great pedigree. This whole GTX 35 VS Kaveri effort was launched on the basis of prior efforts called the GTX 3714 family, 14U family. So GTX 3714U was a turbojet. GTX 3714UB was supposed to be
Is that the one that went for the Marut?
No, it never went for the Marut. For the Marut, the idea was to create a reheat version of the Orpheus 703.
Right.
That was tested on the Marut also, by the way, and somewhat successfully.
That's
But
brings
of course,
back
that's a long saga,
bad
and we
memories.
can't go
Yeah,
into that.
But very quickly, for the benefit of our viewers, sort of, many of them would not have known of the Marut, the
Yeah.
HF-24. What a fantastic aircraft, purpose built for us, designed for us. We started building it, but again, we didn't crack the engine there.
It was the engine. The Marut's failure, or not really failure, because the Marut at least was more than 100 units of the Marut were
Right.
built. But the failure to build on it was entirely a failure on the engine side. And then
Right.
that was used by certain people to argue against follow-on to the Marut, right?
Right.
So you had no follow-ons to the Marut, because even till as late as 1980, discussions were going on with Rolls-Royce to do co-develop an engine. Does that sound familiar? Co-develop?
Right?
Yeah.
Co-develop.
Yeah, co-develop an engine
Yeah.
for the next, for the follow-on to the Marut,
Right.
right? HF-73,
Yeah,
etc.
yeah,
and all that.
yeah.
First, there was supposed to be an HF-24 Marut. More variants were supposed to happen.
Yes.
And then, of course, they started looking at HF-73.
Right.
That never happened. Right. There were many discussions. Even the Russians were tapped at one time to see if the RD-9F could be used on the Marut or not.
Right.
But that engine had a tendency to experience compressor stall beyond a certain Mach number.
Right.
So there were all these issues were there.
So
And I'm talking about earlier, of course.
and the Marut never crossed the Mach number, the Mach 1, and
Maybe it did in a
it's-
dive.
Yeah, but and you can now see it in museums.
But it was beautifully designed, as you
Yes.
said. Kurt Tank was the, and of course the Indian engineers also absorbed
Right.
a lot from Kurt Tank, because he
Yeah.
was there in the initial period, and they were in a position to improve upon it. I mean,
Right.
HAL in those days had a lot of very decent people.
Right. But so now cut to present day, 2025. Do you see a focus to get that engine now going for the LCA, the AMCA primarily? That's the focus, right? To get the AMCA engine right. You have 3 contenders who've lined up for co-developing this engine. How serious do you think these offers are? There's a $5 billion fund that the government has put out now to crack the engine. You think that's enough? You see the focus now coming in?
I mean, that is enough for setting up certain test facilities and initial development. I mean, 40,000, 45,000 crores will get you that high altitude engine test facility, those larger turbine test facilities,
Right.
the flying test bed, and certain other things that you need. It'll get you those things. It'll also help you set up certain manufacturing capabilities
Right.
that you would need for a 5th generation low bypass turbofan.
Right.
Kaveri is a 4th generation low bypass turbofan, F404 IN20 powering the Tejas,
Right.
EJ200, RD33, these will all fall in this category.
Right.
Right. And F414 INS6 is also, it's like a 4 plus kind of, it's a near 5th
Yeah,
generation low bypass turbofan. But a 5th generation turbofan will be much more efficient, will have turbine entry temperatures of the order of 2000 Kelvin.
Right.
Right, and things like that. And of course, we are not even talking about what is called a variable cycle engine, which the Americans have now progressed
Right.
greatly, and the Chinese and Russians are pursuing.
But we want to get that
We
5th
want to get there.
generation
Yeah.
fighter engine.
Yeah, because you can't really have a 5th generation aircraft without the performance that it will provide.
Right.
So I think the government has realized that we are in a predicament at the moment, and we
Right.
have to break it in. We have to now look at it in the same way as we looked at, the issue of becoming a nuclear power,
Right.
because it is
In the 60s and the 70s.
Yes, state preservation,
Right.
state continuity,
Right.
India standing in the world as a serious power are now all at stake, because the
Mhm.
aerospace sector is now a fundamental sector,
Right.
just like electronics has become. In the post World War II arena, steel and petroleum used to be considered sort of fundamental sectors, and everybody used to protect these sectors.
Right.
These are 2 things you have to be self-reliant in now.
Airpower, that's a very interesting point, Saurav, because before the Iran-Israel war, everyone was talking about, including Elon Musk, this is the era of drones and, missiles, and manned fighter aircraft are a thing of the past. And, why are we building manned fighter aircraft? You have Iran, which is invested so heavily in ballistic missiles and in drones. But today, the Israeli Air Force jets are roaming wherever they want to in Iranian airspace, because the Iranians don't have an air force. You think that kind of seals the argument that manned fighters are here to stay?
You need a system on systems approach.
Yeah.
The pager has still not gone away, used in certain
The
places.
pager.
The pager
The radio pager.
The pager has made it into the cell phone, into the mobile,
Right.
on the SMS side, I could argue.
Yes.
You need a system on systems. Having something being able to fly at Mach 2, even if it is manned,
Yeah.
and carrying a certain payload and having a certain amount of radar stealth
Right.
will continue to have utility for the foreseeable future.
Right.
And this aero propulsion goes into everything.
Yes.
See, if I digress into Iran and Israel, is Iran try to make up for its debility on the Air Force
Not
side
having an Air Force.
by on the strike side by having a rocket force or
Right.
by having a large ballistic missile force and
Right.
also certain hypersonic glide vehicles.
Yeah.
That has served them well.
Right.
What did not serve them well was their air defense network. If they
Right.
had a proper integrated air defense network,
Right.
Israel would have found it much harder to attain air supremacy over a large part of Iran, right?
Right.
So in the interim, you need both of those.
Right.
But that does not mean that you depend only on those either. You need to get up to speed on the fighter side as well, because it's always good to have a more consolidated, diversified mix of systems, which have to work in concert, ergo indigenization.
Right.
Having something from here, there,
Right.
and trying to then fuse it together into a system of systems won't work.
But now you see that focus coming into the government with the kind of monies that are being diverted, the attention that's been given to the fighter jet engine, that it's become a matter of state survival and prestige and all of that.
I think they are realizing it's definitely a matter of prestige. See, state survival, one could argue, is being guaranteed by our strategic forces command, right? I could say. But given the rise of precision strike systems and space-based ISR,
Right.
and general persistent ISR, conventional counterforce against nuclear weapons has become a reality now.
Right.
Right? So it could be that you might get into a very bad use them or lose them scenario if you don't have good enough air defenses.
Yes.
Right? Or if you're not prosecuting the enemy in depth yourself.
Yeah.
To prosecute the enemy in depth, you need ground launch systems, hypersonic ground, especially the kind of enemy we face.
Yes.
And also stealthy fighters carrying hypersonic or high supersonic airborne vectors going forward. We need both of these, okay?
Right.
And you can't have a 5th generation stealth aircraft without having a 5th generation engine, really.
Right. So that explains the urgency for us to get that 5th generation.
Yeah, we need that.
Give us a sense of the kind of forces that we will be faced with this China-Pakistan frontier, the air forces. The Chinese air force is modernizing at a very rapid pace. We're hearing about them producing aircraft like sausages, literally. They're probably going to transfer a few to the Pakistan Air Force as well. So what is the kind of 5th generation threat that we are facing vis-a-vis the Chinese?
See, they're producing J-20s at the rate of about 2 or 3 regiments. I mean, they're kind of producing maybe 60 units a year now. They have a humming production line. Like
60 units?
60 units.
That's 3 squadrons a year.
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, and in the case of, they have a humming production line at Chengdu, like the Americans have for the F-35, right? What is called a humming production line. Anyway, there are many details on that. The point is that their production facilities are what you need to look at. Those are now state of the art.
Right.
Okay. The kind of tolerances they are achieving, and there's just one thing, the kind of material handling, the kind of processes they have, it's quite a bit ahead of what we have at the moment. I would say the gap is about 10 to 15 years maybe, in terms of fighter development also.
Right. The gap
between us and the People's Republic of China.
Right.
And they are going to provide these 40 odd J-35s to the Pakistanis.
Right.
See, the good thing is that operating the J-20 out of Tibet with the kind of environment it has is not easy. Okay. Right. Stealth gets degraded over there. There are problems with various problems that come. Okay. Lubricants freeze. You need to develop special lubricants. Sure. Even they may not work as well as you want. And stealth, definitely maintaining those stealth coatings there, when you are doing some kind of high intensity operations is not going to be easy and all that. Right. So, and J-20, although definitely a threat, okay, there are, I mean, with the J-20S, they've apparently fixed a lot of issues with it, but it's still an issue. The weight of attack that they will be able to project against us is not going to be what they would want it to be.
Right.
Pakistanis, Pakistanis can be kept at bay with longer range air to ground systems, right? Much better networking, space based ISR of a particular variety, and also a preemptive doctrine in terms of standoff strikes that we did this time, right?
Sindoor.
Yeah. Right. Which I think, and the next time we should not be chary of using ground-based systems either. Right. I think
or suppression of enemy
air defense. In fact, if we have to prosecute a target in depth, we have to do SEAD or DEAD prior to that, right? SEAD, DEAD. We have to do that. That is sine qua non, I think, for the next round, right? But then let us leave that.
You see the next round coming quickly, very soon.
Unfortunately, I can't say no to that.
And the Pakistanis never disappoint. But so where are we coming back to this 5th generation fighter? Where are we at the jet fighter development program now? Kaveri is history.
Kaveri is not history.
No?
Nothing is ever history in this world.
Right.
Okay, so the Kaveri, it was in 2008 itself, the Kaveri, the baseline Kaveri was dealing from the LCA Tejas program. It was understood that Tejas will not be powered by this.
Sure.
By 2014, there was talk of progressing, because by that time, the Kaveri had succeeded in the flying testbed trials in Russia. And also in the high altitude engine test facility in Russia. It was decided that some what is called K9 standard of preparation, K9 and actually K9 plus standard of preparation prototypes would be further worked upon and brought to a place where they would be put into a Tejas test vehicle for limited envelope testing. A 2017 Safran audit endorsed this view. That you can indeed, the Kaveri can indeed be progressed to flight-worthy status, the baseline Kaveri. But what was instead done at the time was, a new project was started called the Kaveri Derivative Engine in 2017, for which over 1,000, just under 1,100 crores was sanctioned for that project. And a Kaveri Derivative Engine was progressed, which would not have the afterburner section, which would be very similar to the baseline Kaveri. Although there are differences, I'll just tell them quickly. It has a new fan. Which is a high inlet distortion tolerant fan. Because you see what happens is, when you have a S-shaped, because this Kaveri derivative engine is meant to power an unmanned combat aerial vehicle. And so when you have a serpentine intake that you would have on a stealthy UCAV, there are pressure distortions take place, and your fan stage must be able to cater for that. For surge margins. It has an autonomous full authority digital engine control unit. It has a TI cast oil tank. It has an indigenized engine fuel control system. 70% of it is indigenous, which was never the case with the baseline Kaveri. And this has passed flying testbed trials, almost passed them in Russia. And it has done superbly well in the high altitude engine test facility anyway.
So the Kaveri will not power the fighter jets, it will power the unmanned
So a Kaveri derivative engine is supposed to now power this UCAV project. So this is where we are at the moment. We have a 4th generation engine.
We have a 4th generation. What about the 5th generation engine? We've got 2 interesting offers from Safran and from Rolls-Royce. They look very interesting because they've offered IP, is what I'm told.
Because neither of them have a 5th generation engine at the moment. Okay. And they are probably thinking in terms of a 6th generation variable cycle engine now. Because the Americans are already progressing it. The Russians are progressing it. Americans are ahead of others, obviously. Chinese are progressing it. And they, for the kind of 5.5 or so-called 6th generation fighter of tomorrow, you will need that variable cycle engine. You will need both persistence and you will need greater, greater acceleration. Suppose you have a J-36 flying against us from the, and that doesn't have to be based on the Tibetan plateau. That could be based in the Tarim Basin and cover a lot. Or Kunming. And you will need an AMCA Mark II, which will have greater persistence than the AMCA Mark 1. And it should be able to power much more heavy duty electronic warfare systems and possibly have laser based directed energy weapons on board for self defense.
So the demands on the fighter jet engine are only going to increase.
Only increasing over time.
As the time goes by.
So there's another thing I would like to say. There is in the future, the gas turbine may not be what is used. Right, combined cycle engines of a very different variety may be used, and those also need to be progressed. So there are whole classes of engines, aviation engines that we need to progress, and for that we need maybe an umbrella authority which has direct private sector participation in the decision making.
What is the kind of umbrella authority that?
Maybe something like a Atomic Energy Commission, like an Engine Development Commission or a National Aero Engine Commission.
Right. So what will this commission do? Basically, identify the.
This commission will be an umbrella organization,
right,
identifying areas that need to be worked upon. And ultimately sanctioning proposals as well. It will be empowered. It will not be just a consultative body. It will have to be empowered.
Yeah.
It will have to be made up of a few people, and its decision should be the broad decisions should be subject to parliamentary scrutiny.
Right. So like an Atomic Energy Commission, for fighter jet engines.
Yes, but for fighter jet engines.
Right.
And should draw in more than one ministry.
Right.
It should not only be, it should draw in the Civil Aviation Ministry, it should draw in, it should even draw in the Atomic Energy Commission. Because in the future, you will need, nuclear powered engines as well. Not air breathing,
right,
but for space. I mean,
space,
the Space Department is progressing those anyway, nuclear thermal rockets.
That's the future, sir. But the short term, now, where are we with the engine? I mean, are you confident that we can get an engine with the effort that is there with the government, the focus, the resources that are being made available, and of course you've done a lot of work in identifying the in-country expertise to build these engines. Where are we with the engine project? How many years do you think it's going to take us to get that desired?
If we sign a proper co-development effort
with one of these two companies,
one of these, or maybe even others. Even the Japanese are apparently now coming forward.
Right.
Even the Russians are there.
Right.
Actually, it should have been the Americans, but they are not interested really. You know what they're doing. I mean, there are delays of the F404 and F414.
Supply chain issues.
Well,
hearing about. But is that a deal breaker for us? The kind of the hemming and hawing that's been going on for the last 2-3 years.
Sandeep, I would say something philosophical. Time is always a deal breaker.
Right.
Time is always a deal breaker. We don't have, we are out of time now. And in the case, so if we progress it with them properly, and we put in the effort we require, and we do all that is necessary in terms of actual collaboration, and that will require various kinds of government bodies in India to pull together with the private sector. We can have flying engines will of course be ready earlier.
Sure.
We can have a mature product in maybe T plus 13 years, I would say.
Just 13 years.
13 years.
Okay. So by about 2038, we would have an.
And if it is a variable cycle engine, maybe another 2-3 years can be added to that if we have a collaborator and all of us work together.
Right. But there's no way we're going to do it on our own. We need a collaborator.
We can do it on our own.
Right.
We can do it on our own. But then, given the past, the system, I don't think is confident enough yet.
Right.
But at the same time, we will need to progress some other indigenous efforts which are going alone efforts.
Right.
It's not as if this will be the only effort that we can afford to work on.
We don't put all our bets on one horse. No. We get multiple horses. And we've never done that in the past. We've always gone.
We've only done that with missiles.
With missiles.
We've not done it with... with aircraft, we have begun to do it now.
Right.
But with engines, we've never done it except small engines.
Right.
Like there is another engine which has matured, which is the small turbofan engine.
Yeah.
Again, a GTRE product meant for cruise missiles essentially.
Right.
I mean, subsonic cruise missiles. That product is mature as well. And now it has got into limited series production at BrahMos Aerospace Thiruvananthapuram Limited. There was a tender to bring in private sector participation. We don't know where that is at the moment, but I guess we will know.
But the trick you're saying, Saurav, is to get multiple programs going so that, in the hope that one or two will mature.
Yeah, because they feed into each other. Of course, a small turbofan engine, which is of a sort of a single-use variety, will have different characteristics, different design issues with it than a engine like a Kaveri derivative engine, which has to be used again and again.
Yeah.
But multiple projects are absolutely required.
Right. So, a question that I've always had is that we've been producing the AL-31 FP, the Saturn engine, in Koraput. HAL has been making it for the Su-30 fighter jet. Why didn't we think of a light combat aircraft built around one of those engines?
Like 130KN. So that would have put us in the same class as the J10 kind of
exactly.
J10. Because, again, multiple projects were not sanctioned.
Right.
We were struggling with just the one project we had.
Right.
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 There was no confidence, I think, in the system for launching into another project.
Yeah.
Today, you have a Tejas Mark II AMCA project
Yeah.
being progressed simultaneously. And of course, the TED BF, that is for the Navy, the twin engine
carrier-based,
deck-based fighter, yet to be sanctioned. And of course, the sort of RPSA, which the Kaveri derivative engine will power, is yet to be sanctioned also.
Right.
Probably the case has not even been sent. We don't know. So the thing is that, so today we have the confidence. We have crossed certain threshold with all these projects. Okay. Lot of stuff was built up with the Tejas in terms of test facilities. We keep circling back to the issue of test facilities.
Right.
Today, look at the state of affairs. Our 1500 HP Datran engine, we have sent to the famous Ricardo test facility in the UK.
Right.
Which has a whole bunch of features, okay, and can do a whole all kinds of simulations also, hardware in loop simulations, etc. We've sent it there. We don't have, so on the automotive side, we've not built up the kind of test facilities we need.
Right.
Right. We gas turbines, we know the lacunae. Wind tunnels.
Right.
We are now going to build a continuous trisonic wind tunnel facility and a much larger blowdown facility than we have.
That's the DRDO project.
The CTWS, the trisonic is a NAL, DRDO. I mean, it's CSIR, DRDO, and the Department of Space project.
Right. So
it's a consolidated project. You see, what is happening? We talk about bring in the private sector. The private sector will come in. But suppose they prototype something at a phenomenal rate and then they spend 2 years writing letters to people to test. Then what is going to happen? And if you force them to go to Onera, which they may not even have access to and may also get after 2 years only, then where is the profitability in their efforts anymore?
Right.
There are a whole bunch of... So obviously, whatever existing facilities we have, there'll have to be proper timeshare. We can't have DRDO projects affected, but at the same time, we need to progress private sector projects as well. So there has to be proper timeshare for that. But the answer lies in building more.
Right.
If you have one, then people will fight for it. Okay.
Right.
If you have more than one, then you have a chance.
But that's also a
again, a national call.
National call, resources, national will, as you identify.
I completely understand that given that we are still at a certain level of per capita income and that we need to support our poor, we have to apportion resources in that direction. But I will say this, the poor of India deserve as much security as the richest person in India.
Right.
The poor of India deserve sovereignty, they deserve security. Our duty is to protect them as well.
Yes.
And to protect them for better or for worse, we need all these high-end systems.
Right.
These high-end military machines and weapons of war.
Right.
And so even though it may seem like this is a guns and butter issue, it really isn't. It's a matter of sovereignty and security. This country has been crushed underfoot by foreign elements for hundreds of years, okay? And was absolutely, for a period of 150 years, was basically made totally, was degraded and made destitute.
Right.
If you don't want to end up in something similar via the methods that are available today, because colonialism has kept morphing, right?
Yes.
If you don't want to end up in that and then end up being calibrated and pushed to second tier or third tier status, you will need to invest in all of this.
Right. It's about sovereignty and it's not just guns and butter and cool toys. Thank you very much for putting that into perspective, Saurav. I always learn such a lot from you. Thank you very much for your comments and it's been so good talking to you. Thanks for being on my show.
You're most kind, Sandeep.